What pushes a lone wolf to sacrifice everything? From Luthen Rael's deadly game to the hell of Narkina 5, Cassian Andor is dragged deeper into the rebellion. Andor Season 2 reveals the shocking price of his fight, the ultimate sacrifice that will carve his name into history. What turns an ordinary boy into a revolutionary hero? That's the heart of Cassian Andor's story. Before he was a fearless spy taking down the Empire in Rogue One, Cassian was just a quiet kid named Cassa. You see, Cassa's childhood ended the day a Republic ship crashed on Kenari. While his tribe investigated, he wandered into the wreckage alone. That's when Clem and Marva Andor found him, two scavengers who scooped him up and made him family. But ultimately, this family couldn't protect Cassian from the Empire's cruelty. Years later, Cassian watched Clem, the man who raised him, hanged in the street for simply speaking out. Can you imagine the fury he felt? That kind of grief doesn't just fade, it settles deep and hard. And for Cassian, it lit a fire that couldn't be put out. What began as a fight for survival soon became a battle for something greater. Cassian didn't plan on joining a rebellion from the get-go. At the start of Andor, he's just a guy trying to stay alive, stealing Imperial tech and dodging trouble after ending the lives of 2 Pre-Mor guards in self-defense. But that one act puts him on the radar of Luthen Rael, a mysterious rebel leader with an eye for raw potential. Why would a man like Luthen, with an entire galaxy of options, stake so much on a petty thief? Was it the skills, the ruthlessness, or was it something deeper? Luthen had seen more. He saw grit, instinct, and a spark he could mold. So he pulled Cassian into a bold mission: steal the Empire's payroll on Aldhani. Cassian thought it was just another job, but was he walking into something far bigger than he could grasp? Now, the mission was chaotic. They even lost Nemik, but the team pulled it off. And when it was over, Cassian didn't rush toward the rebellion. He returned to Ferrix, hoping to take Marva and disappear. Yet Luthen's words lingered. "I burned my life to make a sunrise I know I'll never see." What kind of person made that kind of sacrifice?
I burned my decency for someone else's future. I burned my life to make a sunrise that I know I'll never see.
Cassian didn't understand it yet, but those words took root. They stayed with him. Then came Skeen. After the heist, Skeen made a chilling offer: ditch the team, take the money, and run. And something about this just didn't sit right with Cassian. So what did he do? He went at him with a firearm. Why? Because Skeen believed in nothing. And even if Cassian hadn't admitted it out loud, he was starting to believe in something. By Rogue One, things had changed. Cassian met Jyn Erso, and at first he kept his distance. He had orders to slay her father, and he followed them, until he didn't. Jyn's speech, "Rebellions are built on hope," echoed something familiar. It sounded like Nemik, and it felt real. This time, Cassian didn't walk away. He followed her to Scarif, knowing it was a suicide mission. In Andor, he ended the life of the man who stood for nothing. In Rogue One, he lost his life beside the woman who stood for everything. So what really changed Cassian? Was it pain, loss, or finally finding a reason to fight for something bigger than himself? Well, just when Cassian thought he could disappear, the Empire had other plans. After the Aldhani heist, Cassian landed on Niamos with a fake name, some stolen credits, and a tan. Seemed like a decent retirement plan, but then the Empire did what it does best: ruined everything. One bad look, one unlucky patrol, and suddenly he was hit with a 6-year sentence for nothing more than looking suspicious. Did he actually do anything? Nope, just breathed at the wrong time. How many others were swallowed up the same way? Nameless, voiceless, and thrown into cages for suspicion? No one knows. But that's how Cassian landed in Narkina 5, a floating prison where the floors could end your life with a zap and the guards barely needed weapons. What Cassian would later go on to discover is that prisoners here spent their days building mysterious Imperial parts under brutal conditions. But what were they actually? Those parts were for the Death Star, the very same weapon Cassian would later give his life trying to destroy. Isn't that the cruel irony of the Empire, forcing its victims to become the architects of their own annihilation? Now, something changed inside Cassian there. He wasn't ready to lead yet, but he was starting to believe, and the real turning point came when he met Kino Loy. Kino was the floor boss who kept everyone in line, until he learned the truth. No one was getting out, not ever. What do you do when you realize hope was never on the schedule? That's when Cassian and Kino started planning to break out, and when everything had finally aligned, Kino took the mic and shouted, "One way out," again and again, until it echoed across the prison. For Cassian, it was the moment rebellion stopped being an idea and became a lifeline. There really was no turning back. But that chant was also the first time Cassian saw what real rebellion looked like: chaotic, costly, and born out of desperation. After escaping the horrors of Narkina 5, Cassian was once again thrust into a cruel twist of fate. This time, the loss of the one person who had always been his anchor. But rather than retreating, this final blow pushed him deeper into the rebellion. Cassian's transformation into a true rebel wasn't complete until he faced the hardest blow of all, Marva's passing. How do you keep going when loss becomes your only constant? When Cassian found out, he didn't hide. He returned to Ferrix for her funeral.
My name is Marva Cassian Andor. I'm honored to stand before you. I'm honored to be a daughter of Ferrix, and honored to be worthy of the stone.
Fully aware the Empire was watching, and the ISB was closing in. But things had changed. Luthen Rael, the same man who once recruited him for the Aldhani heist, wanted him gone. Instead of hiding, though, Cassian made up his mind. He didn't run. He boarded Luthen's ship, looked him in the eye, and said, "Kill me or take me in." What kind of man says that? The kind who's done running, and the kind who's ready to fight. That was when Luthen knew the rebellion had got its soldiers. And in Andor Season 2, we'll see exactly how far he's willing to go. When Andor was first announced, it seemed like a prequel to an already known ending. After all, Cassian's fate was sealed, right? But the show didn't just flesh out how he became the man we saw in Rogue One. It turned his inevitable end into the driving force of his entire story. As we watch Cassian's journey unfold, it's impossible not to ask, how does a man like him dive so deep into a cause, knowing it will lead to his sacrifice? Season 2 of Andor promises to pull us deeper into the heart of the rebellion, and this time, Cassian Andor isn't just an outsider, he's becoming one of its most crucial players. Set against the backdrop of the 4 years leading up to Rogue One, this season will chart Cassian's transformation from a scrappy survivor into a sharp, calculating intelligence officer, doing whatever it takes to fight back against the Empire. In the teaser footage, we catch glimpses of Cassian slipping into the shadows, taking on undercover missions that will lay the groundwork for the Rebel intelligence network. But Cassian isn't in this alone. Cassian's path will collide with Saw Gerrera, a man so consumed by the fight that he's willing to burn bridges, people, and entire worlds to win. Will Cassian learn from Saw or be consumed by the same fire that made Gerrera a pariah among rebels? The 4-year time jump promises to speed up his journey. In those final 3 episodes, we'll witness a direct lead-up to the opening of Rogue One, where Cassian is already a trusted agent for the Rebel Alliance, dealing with life-or-death missions and the kind of stakes that define the galaxy's fate. But here's the thing, by the time the credits roll, Cassian won't just be an ally, he'll be right there with General Draven, primed for that unforgettable mission involving Galen Erso's Death Star message. So how much closer will Cassian get to his destiny in this explosive finale? That is yet to be seen. What we do know is that Jyn Erso won't be taking center stage. In this timeline, Jyn is still under the alias Lyanna Halleck, and hasn't been recruited by the rebellion yet. But one question remains, will Cassian brush against her story before realizing she's the key to finishing his? However, there's a chance that Season 2 will drop some subtle hints about her story, But what if Andor is preparing us for something bigger than just Cassian's transformation? As Cassian becomes further entrenched in the rebellion's fight, Mon Mothma's journey is equally pivotal. You see, the Gorman massacre was a brutal reminder of the Empire's unfathomable cruelty. It marked the time when peaceful protesters on the planet Gorman asking for change were mercilessly slaughtered by Governor Tarkin's forces. How does a government justify murder in daylight? And how long can someone like Mon Mothma sit in that government's chambers, pretending diplomacy still matters? The massacre didn't just devastate the people of Gorman. It sent shockwaves through the galaxy. It was one of the most infamous war crimes in Imperial history, and it's the kind of event that no one could ignore. So how does this terrible moment ripple into the story we're about to witness in Andor Season 2? Well, Mon Mothma, always careful and calculating, may have been forced into action by this massacre. Could it be the event that finally breaks her? This could be the catalyst that pushes her to publicly defy the Empire, marking her decisive step toward becoming the leader of the Rebel Alliance we know from Star Wars Rebels. The massacre could spark something much bigger, a full commitment to revolution. But how will it change her? And what about Cassian and Luthen Rael? The massacre might fuel their growing sense of urgency, pushing them to take even more extreme actions in their rebellion against the Empire. As the news of the slaughter spreads, it might become their rallying cry, a painful reminder of what they're fighting for. How do you respond to a massacre? With words or with fire? This could also be the moment that Tarkin's rise to power becomes undeniable. What better way to show his increasing control over the Empire than through an act of violence this horrific? Andor Season 2 could provide the perfect backdrop to explore how Tarkin's Iron Fist sets the stage for his key role in Rogue One. At the same time, Luthen Rael's desperation is bound to grow. With the Empire hunting down rebels more ruthlessly than ever, will Luthen find himself having to make darker, morally questionable decisions? But rebellion isn't only fought in the shadows or on the front lines. While men like Luthen and Cassian ignite fires underground, one woman wages a quieter, more dangerous war in plain sight: Mon Mothma. By the time Andor Season 1 ended, Mon Mothma was on the verge of fully committing to rebellion, but she was still walking a fine line between her public role as a senator and her secret anti-imperial activities. The Gorman massacre forces Mon Mothma to take a stand, and for Cassian, it's the moment that pushes him fully into the fight, knowing the cost of rebellion will be far higher than he ever imagined. Cassian Andor's fate is already written. We know his life ends on Scarif in Rogue One, sacrificing himself to ensure the Death Star plans reach the Rebel Alliance. But what makes Andor so powerful is how it builds to that ending, showing the years of pain, compromise, and awakening that led him there. Every mission he takes on, whether it's the heist on Aldhani or his imprisonment on Narkina 5, pushes him closer to becoming the man willing to give his life for a cause greater than himself. Cassian doesn't survive to see the fruits of his labor. He doesn't witness the destruction of the Death Star or the rebellion's victories. But does that diminish the fire he lit? Like Luthen Rael, who describes giving up everything for a future he'll never see, Cassian burns his own life to light a fire that others will carry. His journey underscores the central theme of Andor: sacrifice is the price of freedom. How many sparks must die before a flame can rise? And what does it cost to light the match? Cassian Andor doesn't survive the rebellion, but because of him, the rebellion survives. So what do you predict will change before Cassian reaches the peak of the rebellion? Comment down below. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to like and subscribe for more.